So if we could all culturally kind of shift our perspective and allow sexuality to be different between all the different people, because there's a lot of variety among men, there's a lot of variety among women, there's a lot of variety among trans people, gender non-binary folks. The rule of sexuality is variety. Hello, you gorgeous and sexy creature. Welcome to Practice Intimacy. This is the place to be to learn all about love, sex, and how to have the best relationships you can. My name is Jamie Lynn. I'm a marriage and family therapist. And what we're going to talk about today is a question I often get. I receive this question about why are women harder to turn on than men? Why is it more complicated? Why do they want gifts and words of affirmation and to have the right mood lighting before they can get turned on? There are many reasons why this is the case, and I'm just going to get into one of them in this video, and then I'll talk about some other reasons in future videos. But we'll get into one of the reasons, and I'll also talk about what you can do if you're experiencing this in your own life or you've got a partner who's experiencing this. So let's get started. First, I want to name something that feels important. The story that women's sexuality is more complicated or harder or challenging, it makes me crazy. It makes me so crazy, because what that does is it gives women and men, everyone, people of all genders, it gives them the idea that women or people with a vulva are somehow broken or wrong because it takes them either more time or different kinds of stimulation to get turned on than typical men, right? And when I say typical men, what I mean is the straight man who was in most of the sexuality research for the last many, many decades that most other people are compared to. And the problem here is we've got this story culturally that the way to be sexual, the right way to be sexual, is based on the male standard, where you're spontaneously sexual more often. You get turned on just by seeing something or thinking about something, and suddenly you're raring to go. It's also a cultural message that being turned on should be that easy. The moment that you want to have sex, you should be able to think about it and you're ready to go. This is even harmful to men, because a lot of men experience not having the erection whenever they want it, and they think they're broken. But I would say that women and people with vulvas are often suffering because there's this idea that your sexuality is supposed to look like a man's sexuality, that you're supposed to be immediately turned on, and that sexual stimuli is going to do that for you. And that's just not true. So if we could all culturally kind of shift our perspective and allow sexuality to be different between all the different people, because there's a lot of variety among men, there's a lot of variety among women, there's a lot of variety among trans people, gender non-binary folks. The rule of sexuality is variety, difference, uniqueness. And if we would celebrate that and get curious about it rather than saying something's wrong because it does not match the male standard, then we would all have so much more freedom and pleasure and enjoyment. It would be wonderful. So that was me on on my soapbox, and now I'm off. Let's talk about what we're seeing in the research. So one of the reasons, there are many, but one of the reasons that it seems so much easier for a man to know when he's turned on versus a woman or a person with a vulva is because of the different anatomy. While our genitals are homologous, so they are similar, they start off looking exactly the same when we're in the womb, and then based on whatever hormones you get, you either get an elongated sex organ or a enclosed sex organ. And Because of that, because they start off the same and then they just differentiate based on whatever hormones we receive or don't receive in the case of people with a vulva, our genitals are actually homologous. So the clitoris would be the same as the penis head. The clitoris would actually extend into being the shaft. The vulva closes, and that's where the balls are held. So you can think about them being similar and different at the same time. They're homologous. They're not homogeneous, the same, they're homologous, similar. Penises respond differently to sexual stimuli. They get erect. And an erect penis is often hard to ignore. And penises even get erect in the womb, and you can see babies doing self-stimulation because it feels good. It's just something that is pleasurable and not necessarily sexual until you reach a certain age. And then it becomes sexually relevant as well as pleasurable. But a person with a penis who often would identify as male is going to have a different internal response to hardness. Their penis gets hard, they probably are going to feel turned on. There's a really immediate connection between, oh, I saw something that was exciting, my penis got hard, oh, that's what that means. This is sexually relevant and I can be turned on and I should be turned on. Whereas a person with a vulva has a really different experience. A lot of times they may not know that there is the same kind of like aliveness, awakeness, because it's more subtle. For a woman or a person with a vulva, it might just feel like heat. It might feel like tingling. It might feel like wetness. And that could be sexually relevant information for that person. They might associate, oh, this sensation in my genitals means I'm turned on. But because it's more subtle, often it's harder to be aware of. And here's the more important thing. Sometimes your body giving you that information is not actually because you're aroused. And so let's dig into that, because this is actually the thing I want to talk most about. When it comes to body arousal, and men will know about this some too, but women in particular and people with vulvas are going to understand the experience that sometimes your body might be displaying signs of turn on, but you're not aroused at all. You don't have any desire, you're not actually turned on. This is called arousal non-concordance. And what that means is the body's information that it's presenting to you is not the same as your internal mental state. And we all know that the brain is the biggest sex organ. It's actually our brain that determines turn on, not our body. And so even if somebody is experiencing more blood flow, engorgement, more wetness in their genitals, that does not necessarily mean they're turned on. And what the research has found is that for men and people with penises, this is really interesting research. You go into a lab, they put a sleeve on your penis that measures whether or not it's grown or anything like that, so whether there's engorgement. And what they found is that concordance happens about 50% of the time. 50% of the time, a man will see sexual stimuli and feel turned on and recognize that he's turned on. The other 50% of the time, he's going to see sexual stimuli, his penis might respond, but he does not actually feel turned on. And so you go into this lab, you put on the sleeve, you watch different kinds of porn. They show you straight porn, they show you female to female porn, they show you gay porn, they show you monkeys having sex. And they're measuring body response. And then at the same time, they're having the person report felt sense of turn on. And for men, the concordance level, the overlap between I feel turned on and my body's responding is about 50%. For words today, this happens a lot to me. For women and people with vulvas, what they found is the overlap is closer to about 10 to 15%. And here's what's going on. Women and people with vulvas, they're looking at the porn and they're having body responses to almost all of it, including the bonobos having sex. And there's no desire to be sexual, there's no felt sense of arousal, but their body's preparing for a sexual experience because there was sexually relevant stimuli present. I'm watching something that tells my body sex might happen, and so it prepares to be sexual. There's some guesses about why this might be true. Lubrication, blood flow, all of that is going to decrease the likelihood of tearing. And so any sexually relevant stimuli that comes in, the body might pick up as a cue to become a little bit more alive and awake, so that if something sexual happens, there won't be tearing in that area, which is a difference between a vulva and a penis. Like, you don't need to get hard for every sexually relevant thing because it's not necessary if you've got a penis. This is really important information for multiple reasons. On one side of it, this is a way to help people understand that bodies are not always going to tell us when a person is aroused. The reason I say this is so important is because harm has been done to people because they think a wet vagina means I'm turned on. And rape culture would say, well, you were wet, so you must have enjoyed it, when in fact the person did not. And so knowing that difference is important for safety reasons, and then knowing that difference is important for pleasure reasons, because if your partner is like, I'm really turned on, but their body's not having the response you're expecting, trust them. Their brain knows. Their body might take time to catch up. Or if your partner's having a body response that seems like they're turned on, but they're telling you like, this doesn't do anything for me. Next, please. Let's do the next activity. Believe them, because arousal non-concordance exists, and a body response does not mean you're actually turned on. Your brain is what tells you you're turned on. This video got a little long, so I'm going to be a little bit quick about what to do. The main thing to do, if you're exploring what actually turns me on, what actually turns my partner on, especially for a person who was either raised female, identifies as female, is gender non-conforming, and has a vulva, for those people in particular, what you need is a lot of space to be curious about what turns you on. And you know you're turned on, even if your body's not having the wet response that you are told you're supposed to have. If your mind is into it, keep going. That means you're turned on. Awesome. So curiosity is the answer here. Being curious and open and exploratory around what might work for your body and brain, because the brain is so important here, and following that. And then on the other side of it, curiosity is one piece. Working through any frustration that comes up would be the other piece. It can be frustrating to be doing all the things that you learned in the sexual scripts of our culture to do in order to turn your partner on, and they're not getting turned on. Or you yourself are doing the things you learned to do and you're not getting turned on. That can be frustrating. And so the thing to do is to take care of the frustration. Remind yourself that sexuality is unique and diverse, and your way of experiencing turn on might be really different than another person's, and that is incredible. Yay! That means you get to do something fun and exciting with your body that turns you on, and you can include people in that you want to include, and it'll be totally and completely unique to you. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to hit the like button. Remember to subscribe to my channel for more content about sex and love and how to be in awesome romantic relationships. And I will see you next time.